All right, what's up, everybody? We're live tonight with Ronnie Moore. We got a few people, get a few moments for people to get trickled in, let their notifications pop off, and remind them that that we're chatting tonight. I just got my notification, so that means other people are too.
Good. You'll probably have a lot less viewers tonight, Rich, than you're used to because people don't want to hear from me, so they're going to just tune off.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, people should know that you took time off of probably playing Call of Duty with Adam Bartusek to do this stream, so this is a big deal tonight. Like, you made big sacrifices to be here. Like, this is important stuff.
I may have texted him at about 1 o'clock and said, "Yo, I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock and I can play 30, and I get off, and then maybe at the end of the night, closer to midnight, I can play."
All right, what's up, Lunkers with Lucas, PB Dad? Thanks for joining in. So I think most everybody knows who Ronnie Moore is. Maybe not. If you follow the Bassmaster Elite Series, you're probably familiar with Ronnie Moore, and have seen you on the streams, and most recently maybe even on ESPN2. And actually, I'm kind of regretting I literally cut the cable like a few weeks before. So like I just had to stream it on my laptop or mobile device. But what I mean, maybe just talk about that. That's like a big deal, I think. Like what was it? Was there anything different for you, or what was just your thoughts on being on the Deuce?
It really didn't feel different for the 4 days, if I can say that. But
right.
The first day, I'll say that I didn't speak up early and often. I let the show do its thing. We got to see some guys catch some fish. We kind of just let the thing flow. We started seeing some catches come in, so I clipped them off, or my buddy Kyle in the back clipped them off and would send them to me. I'd post them up on social media and kind of get everybody in tune with the event going on, because it was different. It was Wednesday through Saturday instead of Thursday through Sunday. So I wanted to make sure that people were watching. And so I was reserved. I was a little quieter, and people thought, like, jump in there. And I was like, I'm only jumping in for my monitor hits, the screen of knowledge if I have to. But it's everything I've ever dreamed of. I mean, it's cool. People probably, when I post stuff getting excited, they probably think that I'm trying to rub it in everyone's face and then I'm bragging. But it's the coolest thing ever, being a kid that was nicknamed Mouth by my 5th grade math teacher. She called me Mouth in front of the kids in class, and probably thought that was a way to jab at me, but I should write Miss Mary a letter and let her know, like, hey, my mouth has helped me get to my dream job, and been on ESPN2. So that's been awesome. This year's been great. 2020, everybody wants to cancel the year. Man, there's so many good things that can come out of bad moments. And this year, they asked me to be a part of the ESPN2 postage show. You know, I'm always on Bass Live, but to be able to take a step and to help with the ESPN2 show for at least a couple minutes each show has meant the world to me. I mean, that's a dream come true. I got tickled the other day. It was like 5 years ago. I made my first ever TV show shoot with Tommy Sanders college fishing on ESPN2. So it's a dream come true, and I'm excited to be with Bassmaster and do this stuff, because, man, this is my 7th year working with Bassmaster, and I just turned 27. So I always have to do that, remind myself to be patient, because I got a long time left to accomplish goals, and it's early in my life. So
yeah. So watch your back, Tommy Sanders.
Everybody always jokes that I'm poisoning him, but he is like my hero, my favorite dude in the world, and to get to learn from him every day is cool. And he always is. He's the most humble person ever. So it's pretty interesting. And for those tuning in, this is Cheerwine. For those Northerners that probably follow Rich, you probably don't know what Cheerwine is, but this is from
aware of it,
Carolina, and it's good. It's a good cherry soda, more cherry than Dr. Pepper, but other than that, and I would be drinking Mountain Dew. I literally finished them up yesterday, so that's probably my one Achilles is those.
Mountain Dew just did this like big social push where they were paying $20 if you like submitted a screenshot or of your license, and that like just started this morning, and I was like, oh, I was out actually breaking in my outboard. Just got a power head replaced on this, so and I was like, well, the bank was already gone. Like they went through all whatever 100,000 just like that. Like, so that's.
I did see that for your state. That's big for hunting and fishing, because it wasn't just for fishing, but I know Minnesota's like, the land of 10,000 lakes, and hunting and whatnot is probably also widely treasured there. So that's awesome for Mountain Dew to do it. And I always have them, because you take them in the boat. I don't care what any article says about disputing that it works on bleeding bass. I will do it every single time because I think it works, and it gives me confidence.
Yeah, I've done it. Can't say it ever went badly for me. Maybe it would have been fine either way, but never hurts. Plus, I mean, you pour a couple ounces in there, and then you got a nice cold beverage while you're running your next spot. So
once you opened it, I got to drink it now.
Yeah. So speaking of that, I mean, I know you've heard all the stats about like all the license increases and things like that. I guess from your perspective, are you guys seeing anything numbers wise or new faces, or is there anything in your data that's like, are you seeing the effect as like fans of bass fishing with, I mean, obviously you're not seeing 37% jumps like the states aren't licenses, but are you seeing any of that carryover into following the Elite Series or the Opens or anything like that, or like uptick in Bass Nation enrollment or any of that kind of stuff?
See, I don't know about membership necessarily, but I know our engagement and whatnot. I know ESPN2 brought in a whole new demographic live of people who are like, what am I doing? I'm literally tuning in for day 2 to see how the tournament's going for bass fishing, because I caught a glimpse of it on day 1. We were making new fans. Overall, I think a lot of people have just been able to enjoy and appreciate the outdoors during this time, because they've been maybe cooped up or at other social gatherings, other things they've been doing over their life. But now, hey, when it's all freed up and you have a boat that you use 3 times a year, they're using it 3 times a week, or with the different furloughs and things. That's the one bright spot. Was our economy was shutting down, but a lot of people were still buying gas, or a lot of people were still buying tackle licenses, things like that. But I do think it crowded the lakes at one time. But man, we sometimes don't like that as fishermen. But the more people that are outdoors, the better, because that's more people who care about it, more people that'll invest in conservation, more people that invest in the state parks, and it only makes it better for us in the future, to where maybe we won't have to pay for entry, or we won't have to pay for ramp fees anymore in our lifetime.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting, because you hear a lot of people like, oh, we want to grow the sport, but a lot of times those people don't want to see those people on their lake or on their river or on, right? Like,
that's what, and hey, that's the hot word. Everyone wants to talk about game changer. They want to talk about all these things, but over the last few years, everybody's been like, we got to grow the sport. We got to grow the sport. And I've always been like, pump the brakes, y'all. I covered the college series for the last couple of years, covered the Opens, watched the Elites, the viewership, the fans. We can't grow the sport much more than it is without the sport having to adjust and adapt, because we are busting at the seams. Every high school tournament, I mean, we had a 337 boat high school championship, and that was the top 10% in the nation qualified. So we had 3,400 teams try to make the high school championship. That's 6,800 anglers. That's 3,400 boat drivers. That is an incredible amount for a high school series. Every college event is 250 boats with people who are investing in getting their own equipment, their own boats, 2 anglers. I said, dude, our sport is grown. We don't have to grow the sport. It's grown, and it's self-sufficient now. We need to figure out how to manage the sport so that bubble doesn't pop and we don't know what to do with all these people.
Right. I think part of it is like we gotta keep them, right? Like we gotta make sure like they just don't go off and get a job and then forget about fishing, and like make sure that life doesn't get so busy that they've stopped being a fan of the sport. Even though they like, hey, I get to fish all the time. It's a high school program. It's great. But we want to keep them engaged in the outdoors. So. And
people will get burnt out by it for sure. Tournament fishing will burn you out. Getting your teeth punched in every day in a boxing ring, you're going to learn how to either duck, or you're going to end up being a ring coach at some point. But that's just what's great about that is it's going to show people, hey, you can go work for Bassmaster. You can write stories. You can go be a sales rep for a company that, products or marketing or whatever. But it's just going to allow more people. And hey, competition breeds, growth. And I think that's one thing that I'm excited about. There's going to be a lot of people to fill these roles. And in the next 5 to 10 years, all the pro staff managers would have fished in college, and they're going to know what it's like to be an angler. So they're going to know how to help the anglers with contracts or with how much tackle they need, when they need it. I think that not that they're not responsive now, but I think that a lot of people have been like, hey, I've fished for a living. I didn't just manage numbers or I didn't just edit video. I know anglers don't want that spot. If I show that clip, it's going to show too much of their spot. I need to maybe start the clip 5 seconds later just to protect them. I think about that stuff all the time as just, and that's small port.
I know there was a whole bunch of controversy about that in another big event down in Florida not too long ago about how much they showed in the highlights.
Oh yeah, and it's hard. You got to do your job. At the end of the day, anglers signed up and they know what they're facing. They know if I got a camera in my boat, there's positives and negatives to it. If I don't have a camera in my boat, there's positives and negatives to it. And you know what? All day of the week, every day, mic me up, put a camera in the boat, because that's an opportunity to change my life in the sport. If you don't want it, that's fine. You don't have to. Just like nobody's making you be a pro angler. Nobody's making you. They will make you have a camera in your boat if you. I
think the complaint was in that particular tour, they're only allowed to watch that one highlight reel. That's the only thing they're allowed to watch. So it was all in the hands of the people that put the clips together on what the other anglers saw. So that was the bone of contention. Which, but
it's hard. Yeah. I think about it every time. I'm like, man, you know what? You're going to post anything innocent and someone's going to have a negative intent and it could backfire on you. So if you post it without a free conscious or with a free conscious and hey, that's a laydown or that's a big red dock. Jamie Hartman at Gunnersville when he won last year, that was hard. Early in the morning or even any clips, that's a giant white dock. I mean, you know exactly where he's at on Gunnersville. If you've ever been there, when you see that giant community dock or that big barge sitting in the background, you know exactly where he's at. You just got to figure out which angle of the river it's at, and boom, you got it. You're either a couple hundred yards north or a couple hundred yards south. So, hey, I'd rather capture the moment. I think a lot of anglers would rather have.
I think the big issue for them is that they don't fish every day, and so when they sat one day, then
and that's the difference. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
On the final day, Jamie Hartman's like, I'm going to burn this spot down. There might never be a back again, but it is what it is. It stinks, but hey, I only displayed it on the final day.
Yeah. So Lunker says can't wait for St. Lawrence, and we're definitely going to talk about St. Lawrence a whole bunch here soon. We're going to talk a little bit more general bass stuff and what's going on and that kind of stuff. We're going to work our way into the St. Lawrence and the northern swing here. So we will be doing some picks, and we're going to, you'll definitely get the chance to ask all kinds of questions to both Ronnie and I for setting your fantasy teams and a whole bunch of other stuff. So,
and I can't thank everybody who's tuned in and saying the kind things about just about me already or the event. I'm excited, and there's going to be, man, it's hard. You could say this guy's going to be a good pick. And he catches 20 pounds a day, but he might finish 65th place if he catches 20 pounds a day. You got to find a guy to catch 25 or 23, and so it will be fun. It should be a great event, and it's going to be different. I told you this before we started. Hey, if there's an event to do, I would love to do the St. Lawrence now because it's a totally brand new playing field from what everybody expected when they signed up for the elites last year.
Yeah. So Lunkers, just wait. We'll get to it soon. We'll get into the picks, so come back with those questions a little bit. And make sure you guys like and share this. Make sure there's as many eyeballs to get on Ronnie since he took the time to be with us tonight. So
got nothing going on, bro.
I mean, we're probably not going to quite hit 2.8 million like we did on ESPN2, but we want to get as close as possible tonight. So
hey, if Rich's stream gets 85 million minutes viewed tonight, I'm gonna sell my house that I just bought and I'm gonna move to Minnesota. So y'all make me do that. We'll go fishing.
That'd be sweet. And we're back in the Bass Cat studio. So last week the Bass Cat was getting a new power head put on it, and so now I'm back in the Bass Cat. So I feel more comfortable. Things are good. I started breaking it in this week, so I feel like the swagger is back for the stream this week. So I it's been a really weird year. Like the starts and the stops and the St. John's and the almost Chickamauga 2 times. And I guess what are your thoughts just overall of the season, and what do you think some of the good things that came of the convolutedness of it? I guess what are the bright spots with all the adversity?
Man, I'm super excited to see 3 events in the fall, early winter down south. That is a time of the year that is underrated for the South. It's tough. But if you're anytime in the summer, anytime when the post spawn hits in the South to the fall, it's always going to be easier above the Mason-Dixon line than it is below. So that's what it is. But there's no better places to be than Chickamauga, Santee Cooper, and Lake Fork down in Texas in that October and November region. I'm really excited about that. We're going to see. I said, hey, this could be the Whopper Plopper Elite Series. We could see some plopper action, some buzzbait action, some stuff that we wouldn't have seen. So I think the fans who tune in for those 3 events are going to learn a lot. But somebody said the other day, yeah, you're just going to have to, it's just a nonchalant conversation. They're like, you're going to have to asterisk the AOI this year just with everything that's going on. I'm like, asterisk it. And if we put a full season together, whoever wins, they earned it because it's like it was, other than the St. John's. And even that was different because it was 3 days instead of 4, the crazy weather, the tough fishing. So this has been the year of adversity. Everybody wants to talk about, hey, I'm a versatile angler because I like to throw what they're biting. You got to be fishing where they are all year this year because you're going to have to earn it to win Angler of the Year. And Scott Canterbury's gotten off to a great start. A handful of other guys have done good in the first 2 events, but I'm excited about that. That's the positive of it for me is we got a built-in fall trail that we haven't had since 2005. And we had that in 2005. If you remember, we had the normal, E50s, 150s, the Bassmaster Tour called. They had the Classic in Pittsburgh in the summer. And then they went ahead and they're like, we're going to switch over to the spring classics in 2006 without skipping a beat. So they had to start right there in August and go through December and set the classic field for 2006. So that's the last time we really had a fall trail. I've always enjoyed those opens in the fall. It's always been interesting how people manage fish. And 10 Killer proved it last year. 10 Killer was supposed to be Fort Gibson in the spring. It turned into 10 Killer in the fall, and it was tough as can be. And it was an incredible – it allowed the comeback to happen with Carl being 3rd place and a 20-pound bag, biggest bag of the tournament, and winning that. That magic happened because the weights were so tight with how tough it was. So I love that if you make the top 10 on any of those 3 events, you're going to have a shot to win, especially because they're still swimming.
I think if you're like a buzzbait whopper plopper guy, like that's the time of year where you're going to see and I do think you're going to see some guys pop off and have some big tournaments that normally get overshadowed because that is their strong suit. And I don't know who they are, but some of these old school guys like Rick Clunn or might shine out. Maybe David Fritz. I don't know. But I know obviously James Watson doesn't fish the Bassmaster Elite Series, but he's literally made a career fishing Costas and FLW series events and PAAs and all that kind of stuff when they would go through the Ozarks and Middle Tennessee in November, October, right? He's got it out. So there's going to be other guys that are going to wreck them, and maybe not wreck them, but they're going to catch them back. It's because wrecking them might be 14 pounds in the fall on these tournaments on some of them, where some guys
does count. Yeah.
So
I think the Cluns of the world, those Ozark anglers, the Oklahoma anglers, I think those guys are grinders, from the start. I think the North Carolina pros will be just fine as well. North Carolina is one of those places that has plenty of lakes that get 20 pounds, but if you can catch that 13 to 15 pounds daily, you're going to be in most tournaments, and that sometimes gets overshadowed on the elites with the 20-pound bag. So that fall, and Stetson Blaylock's going to be one to watch. He got 2nd Angler of the Year last year, not a guy that I'm going out on a limb for, but him being right down the street from us and fishing these tougher places in the fall and whatnot, I think that we always have our super tournaments, and it's always that whopper plopper buzz bait, maybe a small spinnerbait bait. And that's what he grew up doing. And I think that some of those guys, the Harvey Horns of the world, they'll get a chance to shine for sure. And even the Patrick Walters and the Jake Whitakers, the guys who don't necessarily – they love catching 20-pound bags, but they're not all about it. It's sometimes a lot of work to do it. They'll be totally prepared for those 13-pound bags as a good bag,
Although I also feel like Canterbury is very well suited for that, and he's already in the driver's seat, so this might be.
He doesn't have a weakness really. He doesn't have a weakness. Last year, his weakness was the St. Lawrence and Cayuga, 11th and 3rd. And so
he did really well in those cups in the summer. So I think, Buzzbait Jig, he's going to I think this is a good question to kind of segue us into starting to talk about the St. Lawrence. John D says,
correct.
Brock Taylor says, in the history, have there ever been brothers to take first and second in the same tournament? This is probably a better question for Ken Duke, but
man, I don't know if Billy and Bobby probably back in the day, the Murray brothers,
right.
Bobby Lane maybe had gotten top 10s together. I don't know if they got first and second. The St. Lawrence / Ontario, that we'll get into that, but that could be the Johnston Storm, the opportunity for that. But that's a good one. I think, we have such few occurrences of brothers. I'm probably missing some people for sure, but I think that I think a couple. Son, I think Denny won. And Chad Brower got like 3rd or something at the Classic at High Rock. I think we did a cast from the past with Denny. And I think Chad had finished weighing in his fish, didn't win it, got off stage, and then walked back up to congratulate his dad, 2 guys later. So I think that would be a good one to include. It's father, son. It's not brothers. That's the thing. And you clicked off of it, but John D, I'm ready for a full schedule in 2021. We still have a full schedule in 2020. We are that's
working hard to reschedule Cayuga, right? Not maybe at Cayuga, but that event.
Yeah, we got there's
that event in.
Yeah, there's a week or two that they have, whether it's August, September time period, there's probably a week or two we already have built in there after we reschedule the opens and stuff to be able to do a full season. And that's why everyone's like, I want to know what they're doing in New York. Even the anglers are saying that. And it's like, just pause, pump the brakes. We're going to just make sure we can give up on doing a full season and just give you the answer you want. No New York or yes New York or cancel this or cancel that. But I love the staff at Bass right now because they're trying to give them a full schedule, which is what everybody wants. If you're an angler, you want as many shots on goal for a chance at making a big payday and paying, and providing for your family. So 2021, maybe it'll get back to normal, but I think that we'll look back on 2020 and we'll still have some really good memories from it. The Buddy Gross comeback, Paul Mueller going against the grain to win, Hank Cherry staying close at the Gunnersville Classic, St. Lawrence with Ontario in play. There's already so many storylines, and that's just the first few events we've even had. The Open that we had, John Garrett had 6 fish and didn't cull and had 2-pound penalty and lost by a few ounces. When we've been able to have a tournament, it's been electric, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and I don't know when people forgot how to count, but
I know. I've never had that issue. I catch.
You're on someplace like the Tennessee River and you're catching every cast, but like on the Arkansas River, you're not catching them that fast that you.
Exactly. And that was the problem. We watched it. I watched it unfold, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 1,000% sure he already has 5, and he just called this 6th one his 5th. And it's because he had just a line burner to start the day, like just a barely keeper that he just forgot about, or it came off the coal clip. And the last time he put number 5 in, there's 4 clips there that are floating or whatever. And it was unfortunate. But I said to John that night, there's a better things are coming for him because of that, because he missed out on that opportunity to win. I don't know if it's an elite qualification. I don't know if it's a future classic thing, or if, the love that he's going to get for doing it live and calling Chris Bowes and going through it definitely was an honorable thing. And it was a vulnerable moment. That's the worst feeling ever. And he's like, I can't believe I did that.
Or it's a lesson learned that it won't happen to him on even a bigger stage, right? It won't happen to him when he's in the elite or when he's in a classic or when something like that. William wants to know who's head-to-head picks between us. I'm not sure.
I don't know where you're at. What are you saying? I'm looking at me. I saw that comment too.
You're ahead of me coming into Eufaula, I guess. I don't know. We'll probably get into that. We'll look at the. This is a good question from Jay Pup here. He says, "How cool and awkward at the same time is it working with Z?"
Z is what you see is what you get. He is not one way on camera and a different off camera. He is the same guy. You know, obviously after you talk all day long, he might be a little quieter after live, but if you see him at an expo, if you see him walking in the street, he's going to be the same Z. He balances a whole lot of stuff in his life with him doing Bassmaster stuff, having his own show, his own sponsors, doing his own family stuff, traveling. I love Z. It is very awkward though. I stubbed my toe on ESPN2 the other day at the Screen of Knowledge, and I was like, don't you dare look at him. If you look over at Z, you're going to mess up even more. Just keep looking at the camera. And I looked straight ahead, because if I was looking at Z, he'd be like making some kind of face over there, and I would be done. And he's the only person that has that I've known so far that has the ability to spin me out whenever he wants.
Nice. Yeah, Brock was a good point.
He's one of my favorite people.
Like Hugh opened the door for Buddy Gross, which created an epic comeback and made an awesome, final day live.
I like to say, well, if Shane wouldn't have made that Cole infraction, yes, Buddy would have finished 11th, but that doesn't mean that Canterbury would have won, or whatever. You don't know what's going on that day. But LeHue would have been 7th after catching 25 plus pounds, and that's what he would have needed on the final day, was just 25 pounds, and he would have won. I say just 25 pounds, but the guy who was just about to register the biggest bag of the event prior to his penalty, all he needed to do was just match that the next day, and he would have won. And you never know how people fish different or whatever.
Like with LeHue in the mix, maybe he's fishing the same water as Canterbury, and they share water, and somebody else rises up. I mean, you just don't know what's. But it definitely opened the door for Buddy. There's no doubt. Hunkers asked, what happened to Sabine? Sabine got rescheduled to be Cayuga, and then Cayuga is going to be rescheduled again. So I'm sure Sabine in the next season or two, I'm sure they'll go back there at some point.
So the Sabine, they have a brand new pavilion that they've built where we had a giant open field. If you see those weigh-in shots of how many people are there, that was just a big open field. They've made a big pavilion area for fans to do that. And then also, if we rescheduled it in the fall like we were planning to, a chunk of the fishery would have been off limits because it's like a wildlife refuge. So the guys would have already had only the Texas side of the Sabine, because Louisiana's out of play. Part of the Texas would have been out of play a little bit, and that would have been even less water to fish. And so they said, hey, why don't we just reschedule it? We'll come back, and maybe 2021 we'll knock it out. Your pavilion will be built by then and all that. And so hopefully so.
Yeah, and that place is tough enough already. You don't need to be going there at the end of late in the year.
And if you want to have a fan base and a crowd, often brings a lot of economy to towns, like Waddington, like Orange, Texas. And so would you rather, if you like Waddington has, like St. Lawrence River, we're planning to go back years to come, you know what I'm saying? But if you're a place that doesn't have a contract in place, or you don't know when the next one's going to be, you want to make sure you execute on it. And so they're like, hey, COVID's here, pavilion's not done. Let's just redo it when we have our full fan base and really make that impact in the town like we know we can in past years.
Yeah. What's up, Roger?
Roger talking junk.
Yeah. Sometimes Roger sends me these really elaborate Google sheets, and my mind is like, I don't know what you're doing here, Roger, but I'm glad it works for you.
Yeah. And I have I forget a little bit about spinnerbaits and crankbaits and drop shots when I read that document, but I learn a whole lot about numbers, probabilities, and I'm like, man, that has taken a lot of time for someone who doesn't get paid to do it. I haven't created a database like that for fantasy fishing, and I'm the Bassmaster authority on it.
Roger, you need to go fishing more and stop spending less time on spreadsheets. But yeah, so let's start to talk about this. So we're going up north, and it sounds like we're 99.5% fishing in St. Lawrence, as long as there's no weird thing that pops up next week.
Or tomorrow, or in a minute. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, check Twitter. Maybe it's already canceled. Yeah. So just a few things that people should know, right? Now this Cayuga would have been a really sweet event. They would have caught him. It would have been awesome. I was really pulling. I wanted to see it because I really felt like Seth would have had a great chance to win. I think the flip and bite would have been good. I think he would have not laid off him as much as he did last year early in the event. And, so there's a couple Minnesota guys that I think would have done really well on Cayuga. But now we're going to St. Lawrence, and we're adjusting a few things. They're not allowed to fish Canada. And we're going down to Clayton, which is about 70, 75 miles closer to Lake Ontario. And we are allowed, the anglers are allowed to fish the U.S. side of Ontario.
Yep.
I guess my question is, you've covered some of the events up there. You probably have a better idea, like how many of the anglers and how much I don't know, roughly percentage were they fishing the U.S. or the Canadian side? Like the guys that have been doing really well, were they really like banking on that? Was that really heavily utilized? And then the lake, do you know, is it good on the U.S. and the Canadian side on the lake? And what are your thoughts on what is this going to do? That's a whole lot of questions, but go ahead.
So I think we've seen in past years, I believe Micah Frazier won last year's event in Canada, in the river. When Polinick won in 2013, it was in the lake. He was the only one that went to the lake, and it was in the New York side. It was in the USA side. Obviously, there's a lot of good fishing there in the lake. Probably if the lake was in limits and Canada was available, it would be really hard to beat the Johnstons. It'll still be hard to beat some of the guys because they know about the lake, but Canada and the lake is just, is very good as well. A lot more water to fish, but there's still a bunch of water in Ontario in the New York side to fish, all those islands and twists and turns and different rises and rock piles and things. There's plenty of that. There's plenty of shallow stuff as well. I think it'll be interesting because there are good stretches on the New York side in the St. Lawrence River itself. There'll be people who probably run from Clayton and will try to go towards Waddington, even though everyone from Waddington goes down. I think it's to get away from people, but I also think a quarter of the field minimum. I think at least 20+ people go to the lake, no doubt. They don't even practice the river. I think at least 20 people fish the lake exclusively for 3 days for practice and bank on the lake. I talked to Polinick about it, and the interview just went up on Bassmaster.com and the video page, but it'll be out, promoted more heavily next week. He mentioned how back in the day, you look at the results, and any tournament near the lake had higher winning weights than by Waddington. But how that was 7 years ago. Recently, Waddington put out just as much weight, tournaments that are out of there. So the river's definitely caught up to the lake. But where you find them on the lake can definitely produce. But you guys who run all the way down to the far boundary at the mouth of the lake, and they still catch them well. So I think that a lot of these people are going to be able to spread out in just different regions than we've seen. We're going to see some of the guys in the New York side down by the mouth. We're going to see some of them run up and fish mid portions of the river. We'll see some guys go to water. There is an opportunity that we have anglers fishing on live 150 miles apart. We have 110 miles of river to fish from Messina. I'm putting my hands out from Messina to the mouth of the lake, 110 miles. Well, now that we're in Clayton and it's still all the way to Messina is open and the lake, we got 200 miles at least, in store. And so I think that they'll fish it the same as they have in past years, but there are going to be a lot of areas that were overlooked that people will catch them on for sure. And I think it'll teach us a lot more about the river than we knew.
And because like when Polinick won in 13, right, that was the last year that the lake was
first and last.
Yep. Yeah, so that was the time. So that one time it was one up there, and I believe the other years that Polinick did well, he usually liked to get really close to the lake. He was making pretty big runs. How's the largemouth fishing down towards Clayton versus up? Like, are we getting further away from the largemouth, or is that sprinkled all along there?
I think all those little bays have them for sure. I know a lot of those islands, where Van Dam fished and whatnot, and he was fishing for smallmouth. A lot of those islands have reeds and different things that largemouth are out in the middle of the St. Lawrence River. They're not just in a bay around docks. So I know I covered Skeet Reese Down, where basically all the castles are I don't know what I can probably find it on the map real quick, but all the way down, not all the way to the mouth, but I'd say 3/4 of the way down there. We were probably down there right around Clayton, but he was catching smallmouth at the mouths of bays, and there was plenty of fishable water there. I think the largemouth will be fine. I think David Fritz last year, and I think Brandon Card. There's a couple guys that Hunter Shryock had a great tournament with mouth. I know Fritz was going a long way with Waddington and fish for largemouth too.
Yeah, and somebody fished smallmouth for 3 days and then thought they were going to try largemouth.
Greg DePalma. Yep.
Yeah.
And he had like a mixed bag that day. I think he had 3 and 2. I don't know if it was 3 largemouth, 2 smallmouth, or vice versa. But he ended up catching them, and it wasn't really dramatic. It wasn't like he was fishing deep and then went and fished in dirt shallow for largemouth. It was like a Carolina rig, and then he was fishing like a shallower Carolina rig spot.
Yeah. Is it smallmouth that wins? Almost, yeah. A multi-day event, I think you're going to have the majority smallmouth. Could you slip a freak largemouth in to help yourself? Yeah. Can you make a top 10? Can you make a good check with largemouth? Yes, but I don't think you can win it with largemouth, especially with the lake in play. I just don't.
I don't either. I think that the lake now being in play cements even further the only way is if you're rolling up. You might have a longer run and you're running in and you got there a little early, so you fish near Clayton for largemouth, or you just fish the bank because you didn't practice around there. I could see you catching a largemouth that could help a little bit, but dude, it's going to be, you got to catch a 4.5, 5 pounder, and that's, they're not unicorns, but it's not easy to do it in 20 minutes. You can't just go up and go catch a 5-pound largemouth in 20 minutes. You can probably go catch 15 2-pounders, 3-pounders, but you can't go probably go catch a 5-pounder immediately.
Yeah. What's up, Sean Lai? Thanks for joining in. Tom's here after his nap. William's got it's like, what does ESPN say about the cancellations? I think they're so starved for content. Like, they're not too picky these days. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's just a heads up from us. Mike McInnes, my boss here in Little Rock, he just has a good communication with ESPN and is like, hey, guys, we've got 3 New York events coming up at the end of July. What do you guys think? And they're like, heck yes, live was great for Eufaula. Let's do it again. And then when we let them know, hey, one of our events got canceled because of New York, they're like, okay, no big deal. We'll just keep doing whatever we were doing before. And then, but the hours and stuff are going to be fun. I know for ESPN2, we normally do 6 hours of live. We do 3 hours, an hour break, and 3 hours. And part of the St. Lawrence and Champlain, we'll have 7 straight hours. At times, certain days, we'll go 7 straight hours, and it'll all be on ESPN2. Or if they pick it up halfway during the day, we'll have 7 hours on Bassmaster.com and whatnot. So I'm excited because no breaks, baby. I'm already exhausted at the end of the week because I give it my all on live, and it'll be even more fun not having a break. But I do like a bathroom break, and those ESPN2 commercials are like 2 to 2.5 minutes. So we got to hustle when we do that.
Yeah, because you guys you don't get the extended live breaks that you would.
Yeah. We normally have we'll build in a 6 to 8 minute commercial just to have a long one every 3 hours. And for ESPN2, we keep in the head in the game, which is fun because we don't miss much. We don't miss any action. We don't have to replay a lot of action. We're just live in the moment. And that was basically that midday portion right before we went to break, and then through the break, and the last 3 hours was when Buddy Gross made his run. So I'm excited to go. We always have so many things that happen on live mix for that hour in the middle of the day that we're not live. We're live on Facebook, obviously, me and Stooch for 15 minutes or so, but to be live the whole time, we're going to have plenty of action. People aren't going to be like, oh, that's a tough time of day. There's the leaderboard's flipping at that point. And with smallmouth, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, the northern swing, there's not going to be no short fish to catch. And this bass is not in it alone. I mean, like MLS had a 9 a.m. tournament soccer game the other day, and they had a couple players test positive, and that game fell through 30 minutes before kickoff. So, ESPN is totally, I think, understanding that they're rolling with the punches just like everybody else. So
that's why they're the worldwide leader in sports, for sure.
Connor says, what do you think of the Guggen Squad? I think the Guggen Squad is great for getting more eyeballs on fishing and getting more kids involved in fishing. And I think it's up to, people like Bass and people that, create different kinds of content to get them to, take the next step. And so like be there, like when they want to get more serious and learn more about bass fishing and take it to the next level, those are all the steps out there to, to make it a lifetime passion versus just a kind of a fishing entertainment, entry level. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Anything else?
I love Tyler's Real Fishing. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I love Tyler.
Yeah.
He's not a part of the good Guggen squad, but there are some really good YouTubers out there that are good people and good teachers, and they just love the sport. And so a lot of young people coming into the YouTube game that are, making a name for themselves. There's a kid that I met on TikTok. I was watching some fishing, you just scroll on TikTok and it's everything. It's a mixture of Call of Duty clips for me and fishing related content. I saw this dude and I was like, he posted one day, he's like, I'm going to be at the Lake Eufaula Bassmaster Elite event. I was like, let's go. So I like DM'd him and he's trying to make it big on YouTube as well. And I think there's a lot of bright people on YouTube, and it's really motivating Elite Series pros to be better there. But I'd say if you haven't checked out Tyler's Real Fishing, I would do that for sure. He's a good one, and he's one of my close friends that does his channel the right way for sure. There's some other people as well. I'm just not thinking of at the moment. But Noah, Kicking Their Bass TV is a good one as well. I've known Noah since he was a high school angler. What's good about Tyler and Noah on YouTube is that they fish ponds, they fish lakes, they fished in college, they did college tournaments, and they did well in those. They do fun fishing trips, they do teaching moments, they do goofy stuff, but they've got a well-rounded background. Tournaments, teaching, fun, and they're young, and they're willing to travel around and have a good time and collaborate with people. So those are two good ones if you don't know, Kicking Their Bass TV and Tyler's Real Fishing.
Absolutely. Cool. So what should we dig in and talk some specifics?
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, let's then we can kind of roll from there. Let's
Tactical Bass is a good one too. They're older. Classify them.
Tackle Bass in effect. When they talk about something, Tackle Warehouse usually is out of it in a day or two. So there's like they're your influencer.
It's like Bass Live, but on YouTube. Like anytime somebody catches Bass Live, it's gone immediately.
So I don't have a good way to like hide my picks because my column's not up yet. But I think you can kind of see that.
Yeah. If you want me to, I can pull
a couple questions here about, I think Lunkers was asking about Bill Weidler for Bucket E. What are your thoughts on Mr. Weidler for Bucket E if you're trying to go for a low percentage guy? What are your thoughts?
Man, I am all about fighting the percentages. I do not like picking guys that have a high percentage, and I got to bite the bullet this time and do it at a certain time. But, man, Bucket E is interesting. Bill Weidler is in Bucket E. You got literally 70% of the ownership between two guys, Chris Johnston and Greg DePalma, rightfully so. We mentioned Greg earlier. He got a top 10 last year. Chris Johnston obviously almost won the event last year, got second. He's from Canada, has a lot of experience there. He's a good one. Brian Snowden, he's at 4.5%. People might not know who that is. Brian Snowden's been on the Elite Series since its inception. He's at 4.5% right there. He made the top 10 last year. People forget he fished for smallmouth all 3 days, and then he went and fished for large too around those islands.
And I'm pretty sure he's had a couple high finishes. I don't remember all his stats, but he's done better than he – on average, he's done pretty well at the St. Lawrence, and he's pretty much fished every Elite Series St. Lawrence event, right? So
yes, he has, and I'll say I get to brag about it a little bit. I picked him last year, I think, on my fantasy team, and people were like, "What?" And a Missouri angler, and he proved me right. So yes, he does have a good track record here, and that's one thing I looked up when you look at some of these guys is they might not seem like they fit the bill. A Bernie Schultz, a Bill Lowe, those guys. Schultz is from Florida. From Ohio and Indiana. Those guys literally aren't supposed to catch them in the St. Lawrence, but they find a way to mix in what they like to do, or at least being shallow and catching them. And one of them always is in the top 20, if not both of them.
Yeah. So I think, to me, it's really hard to go against Chris Johnston here, considering that he just barely missed the 50 cut after a combination of fiascos of boat problems and electronic mistakes and resetting the clocks. And he almost still made the top 50. And had he not had those, I think he would have been in contention to win last year. Like, he's still chances and throw the fish back. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to pick against him.
Yeah, Chris did almost win it. Corey was the one who had all that issue. And yes, those guys, I mean, that's just, we mentioned it off the top, the brothers deal. Like, that's going to be very tough. But yeah, Chris Johnston at 54.4%. I hate picking guys that high. That's terrible. But I'm picking him. He's my pick.
But on the flip side, if you miss, then you're also getting buried by 50% of the field.
Yeah, you get to, well, you're in the same boat as those 54%. So I'll take that risk because you're never gonna get a shot at Chris Johnston in bucket E going into the St. Lawrence River ever again. He's normally in bucket A, B, C. You know, last year he was in bucket A because he had done so well at the St. John's and whatnot. He was in the AOI contention. So a lot of those heavy hitters that are good on smallmouth were in the top 10. So he was in bucket A. This year being bucket E, he's had a tough start to his season. You got to go with him there. Greg DePalma's a good one, 15%. I'll throw out, I said Bernie Schultz at 1%. He's a good one for it. Rick Klun's done well occasionally there, throwing spinnerbait and whatnot. He'll be one to watch. But otherwise, it's a lot of Southern boys. Louisiana, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Texas, North Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama. There's a lot of Southern guys, and it's too risky at less than 1% on them. You got to know that they're going to catch them from being their buddy or something, and they're like, I'm on them to take that risk.
Bernie likes to go north, though, doesn't he, when he does well? Bernie Schultz?
He likes to go shallow. He's gone south of takeoff towards the lake some, but it's not nearly as far, no. But north does have a lot of good shallow fishing, like you mentioned. Even Steve Kennedy was throwing a swim bait for smallmouth north of Waddington's takeoff. So it would be a ride for sure. But it's a calmer ride. You're not going into where all the water in the world funnels to at the mouth of the river. You're going away from it. So if it does get rough one day, that might be the safe play. If you're going to make a 50-minute run, I'd rather make it away from the lake than to the lake. Even though going with waves is terrible, I think you can avoid it there because you're going with the current and the waves. It's not like the current waves are smashing. They're going with it, with both of them.
Yeah, I think, honestly, if you really feel like you need to fight the percentages, I think Snowden is the smart pick here. Some of the other ones are okay, but I think they're all fairly risky when it compares to Chris Johnston. And these guys can do well and get you good bucket E points, but I really think that, you have a chance to get a guy that's almost guaranteed being in contention to the win, as long as there's not a freak accident or something goofy again. Sure. That's why so yes, a couple questions here. Yes, largemouth will play a little bit for checks. Somebody will probably sneak into the top 10 on largemouth, but nobody's going to win. Connor, we're going to talk about Seth in a minute. Yep. Yeah, I think the reason Welcher sounds like he's jacked up on energy drinks because he probably is jacked up on energy drinks.
He's a good one on YouTube as well. I wasn't going to classify him as a YouTuber because he's an Elite Series Pro, but he's a great one on YouTube as well. He's a good teacher, but Welcher's the only thing we don't know about the kid is how he does with smallmouth, and this is going to really tell you a lot. He can go find some largemouth and do something at Champlain for sure. If he's going to go out there and drop shot on Lake Ontario, we may see a little bit of a learning curve for him right there, but I think that Welcher is going to be a solid pick in the fall for Santee, Chickamauga, and Fork. I think he'll be one for sure to watch there. It's the question. You might have to not pick Kyle Welcher this time. He'll be in bucket A. You might not pick him this time because the uncertainty. He's never been up there in the Great Lakes and done that stuff really. So, and if he has, it's very limited.
Yeah, risky. It could pay off. I mean, I think Bill has a good question. Interesting pick. He said, if you have 5 guys to pick, watch live in New York, let's say on the St. Lawrence, and I guess from a personal standpoint, if you could watch 5 guys, not necessarily maybe which 5 guys are best for live, but which 5 guys would Ronnie want to watch to learn from or something from that perspective?
The Johnston brothers. There's 2.
Yeah.
Gotta pick them because they're going to produce as well. And if they're not, they're going to run around till they do produce. You know, they're going to know enough spots. It's hard to beat a fighter Zaldane Polinick. It's hard to beat that. But I like guys like Clifford Perch. I think he's a really smart guy. I think Bill Lowen's a good teacher on a way to approach the St. Lawrence and New York fishing a little differently than just drop shot or drifting. He'll be one to consider. Man, I'd like to see some of the boys squirm. Some of the guys who are maybe not as comfortable up there. I'd like to watch them have 2 or 3 guys, 3 or 4 guys that are really comfortable up there, and 1 or 2 that aren't, to see how they adjust and figure it out on the fly. Sometimes people like to watch live to catch them, to see them who catches them. I like to watch live sometimes because I really get to learn what anglers act like when they get punched in the mouth, or when they're trying to learn. Or it's their weakness and they're on live. I think that's a good time for them they verbally go through the motions, and they're like, okay, my first 3 spots haven't worked and they're all in 15 feet of water. I'm going to go try 8 feet of water, and then I'll go out to 30 feet of water. And when they get to 8 feet, they don't see a bass, and they're like, okay, I'm going to 30. And then they catch them, and you're like, I got to watch that dude mentally figure it out and then learn it, you know?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much on board with what you said with like Polinick and the Johnsons. I think the other interesting thing would be see like somebody like Bill Lowen and somebody like Schultz that tend to do really well up there. They don't tend to always get on camera because they're usually kind of lurking just below the line, and they kind of just make it in the top 10. I'd like to see, because I'm guessing they're doing it a little different, and it'd be interesting to see how they're doing it. And I think that would put a different lens on it, and I'd like to see that. So
I think of Brandon Lester too. We got to watch a little bit of it, but he's gone up there before and done well, and he's fished like bridges and like current breaks like that, like you would on the Tennessee River. Like bridges are big on those lakes, and it's like he almost took his southern knowledge and went up there and made it right. He finds a pinch point between an island and a point, and he catches fish off of it. I think that's a good way to translate guys who've never fished for smallmouth of, well, I'm pretty close to the bank. I'm not out in the middle of this giant lake where I can't see the land on each side. That's a place that I can still catch 20 pounds of smallmouth. That's cool. You know, that kind of thing. I think that's what really breaks down the learning barriers. If you see someone doing something you're familiar with and they're not extremely deep or extremely shallow, you can learn from them.
We both agree, Chris Johnson, right, for Bucket E.
Yep.
Are you also on the Johnson train for Bucket D?
Really have to be. I really have to be. It's hard, man. Like 50%, 49.1% ownership. That is brutally tough. But like I said,
that could go up as we go into next week.
Oh, yeah, exactly. People hadn't filled their team yet, and so it could go up for sure, but I don't feel like I'm ever insecure with those 2 guys. They have a shot to win. That's all you want from your fantasy pick, is to have a shot to win. You know that they have a really good knowledge base there, and you don't want to not be on that train if they both get in the top 10 and you have 50% of the fishing world picking them and you're not. That's tough. You'd have to really – your guy would have to beat them, not just do as good as them. Because if my guy that I picked that's 1% finishes 3 spots lower than them, you're losing points to half the field just by, you know, whatever. Or if your guy doesn't make the cut, and that's crucial. It's really, don't bomb fantasy fishing. You want to find a way to do really great in fantasy fishing, but you don't want to bomb it by picking someone that's low percentage and getting owned by a guy that's doing the percentage like 50%. So in that bucket, I mean, Steve Kennedy's at 6%. Garrett Paquette from Michigan's at 8%. Lee Livesey's at 19%. Those are the other guys that are, you know, a decent percentage other than 50%. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see how Lee does. He did, you know, he's been on that swing last year as a rookie on the elites and managed just fine, finishing in the top 15 in points. So he obviously did well enough there to survive. But it will be interesting. I don't know how Kennedy would do. To be honest, I love the man. If he called me right now, I'd answer it and have a good time with him. But I do not trust him in fantasy fishing anymore. He's a win or go home, and I can't deal with that. That's scary.
He's been very Jekyll and Hyde on the St. Lawrence. It's 6th, 60th, 15th, 70th. Like he could win it and he could finish 90th. And
like 4 back
tournament. Be that way. So
he was like one of the locals that you follow, and he caught 4 bass or something like that. It blew my mind. I was like, no way his bass track's right. Yep, he had 1 fish and 3 fish or something. I was like, that's crazy.
It's really hard for me to even come up with a backup in this one. Like in Bucket E, I could talk myself into a couple people, but this one I can't. Usually 21 to 22 pounds a day on historically is what it takes on the St. Lawrence, right?
Yeah, I'm reading that. How many pounds a day? Yeah, I think it was 88 for Polinick, which was 22 a day. With him having a 2-pound penalty, he had a 2-pound penalty in that event, so it would have been a little bit more than 22 a day because he would have 90 pounds. And then we've had a 95 and we've had a 97. So, man, that'll be something I want to know.
Those more August events? Weren't they more August when we had a little bit bigger weights or not?
We've had them every single week from the middle of July to the middle of August. Yes, we've had I think we've had 5 events. Like Evers, when he won, was like mid-July. When Van Dam won, it was like, early August. When Polinick won, it was late August. It's been all those. And then I think when Bertrand won, it was meshed in between last week of July. And so this one's in that same time frame of this 5 or 6 week span. And so what's weird is you can't think about what has the fishery been doing for the last 3 or 4 weeks for when it comes to approaching there. You have to see what the St. Lawrence was doing 6 months ago. If the ice came off quicker in places, or if the water went up, or if the water was higher last year. Last year the water was so high the dam was iffy getting through. You had to no wake and you couldn't be near the land. You had to be 150 yards off the land so that you didn't create too much of a wake for the natural islands. And so there's a lot of different factors that play, not just water temperature. It's going to be a post-spawn deal, but how post-spawn is it? That's the big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, Lunkers, I mean, if you're looking for somebody that not a Johnson, Lee Livesey is a decent pick. I just know if you mentioned it all, Keith Combs has always done well. Yep, he's a good pick. He's not in one of these buckets. Yeah, we're working our way up the bucket, so we'll be talking about Zaldane shortly. So let's talk about bucket C. That's where Polinick is, Zaldane, Fighter. So this is where it starts to get juicy. You got Gussie, you got last year's winner, you got Hunter Shyrock. So this is where you definitely more debate and conversation with Cliff Perch. Austin Felix is a northern guy with smallmouth. He doesn't have necessarily a track record here, but he's an interesting person to think about.
Brian Schmidt.
Yeah, Brian Schmidt. I mean, he knows current. He does well. So there's a lot of guys to think about in bucket C. To me, it's a much better conversation, an interesting conversation when you start to get into these top buckets.
I'm counting up 8, 9, 10. There's about 15 guys, 16, maybe a little bit more. It might be closer to, it's like 19 guys per bucket. And there are about 11 that you could honestly consider and do just fine in this event. This is going to be where you're splitting hairs, and someone who finishes 3rd is going to help you beat somebody who had a team with a guy who finishes 6th or 5th in it. 39% in change for Fighter, 24% for Zaldane. You've got 10% for Gussie, 13% for Polinick. A lot of guys are getting disrespected because they're lower than 5%, but that's because there are some really good anglers in this bucket. Like I said, 11 guys that you could really consider. And I'm going to go with a guy that's less than 1%. I mentioned him earlier, but Clifford Perch. He was in that top 10 when they had Ontario the first time in play. He wasn't in Ontario, but in 2013, he had a top 10. I don't think he has had a bad event. I might be wrong. I might click it right now and just kind of scroll and see. I think he's been in the cut and done well every time we've been there. He's great with electronics. He's great with finesse fishing, great with deep water, and Perch is just a rock-solid pick for less than 1.
2 hiccups, but I don't know the history. If it could have been mechanical, it could have been – you never know with big water. It not necessarily he might have caught him and maybe just didn't make it back or had a late penalty or I don't know, something weird. But yeah, overall, I would say 80-90% of the tournaments up there, he's done really well for sure. Definitely.
What did he have? He had what did he have last year? He was like 50th last year, 56th with 32. So his worst was 2 16-pound bags on average, and that was middle of the pack or a little bit lower than mid pack last year. But yeah. I think he's one that's just underrated, and I think that he is going to win a Bassmaster Elite Series event very soon. And it's got to be – I think it's got to be one of these events, one of these smallmouth type, deep water, clear, finesse fishing oriented.
Yeah. So Brock's asking about – kind of rewind, the Menendez last minute I don't think there's any way to get any makeup. Just like if an NFL player pulls a hammy in warm-ups, you're kind of stuck. So I think that's the way it works in fantasy fishing too.
That is, if a guy is day-to-day or a guy is even normal, guy has no injury designation on fantasy football, he could be a scratch that day. You know, and Matthew Berry, if you've seen him on Twitter, Matthew Berry is hating on my Arizona Cardinals because they gave David Johnson 1 carry in a game, and then Chase Edmonds had 160 yards rushing, and David Johnson never touched the ball again after the first play of the game. So he started David Johnson and got 0.1 or whatever he got on that carry. So, yeah, that stinks for Menendez. And an update on him, I'm pretty sure, unless something miraculous happened, he will not fish the St. Lawrence event. I am supposed to talk to him about that tomorrow. Probably be able to see that on Facebook as well, our interview with him. But Menendez, with that back injury at Lake Eufaula, he actually he said he was casting a big crankbait, and he just like tweaked it the wrong way. It looks like a baseball player swinging and missing. Or I think not a cast. I think it was a hook set. I think he threw a long cast out and he hook set and hurt his back. And it's one of those deals. It's a disc deal. And he said to me, it wasn't a disc deal like on the back of his back. It was like on the front of his spine. So like behind your stomach, behind your chest. So you can't really fix that other than tightening your core and doing all that stuff. And he said he could barely get out of a golf cart the other day. So I don't see him tackling the Great Lakes with a boat. So don't pick Mark Menendez this time. He might not be on the roster to pick, but don't pick him.
And I guess just to be buyer beware, like you're doing testing the night before the date, like
no, the night before practice.
Well, like you're gonna get like the results could come in, like there could be, or somebody could get sick, like now more than ever, somebody could be last minute drop because of injury, sickness, all kinds of things. So they could get home and say, little Susie, my mom, right? Like this is a scary time in fantasy sports, no matter what fantasy sport you're playing. Like things can go bad.
At least you're
Lucas
down on the table for this one.
Lee Livesay, he's okay. He's an okay pick. He's done okay here. Bill Weiler, is he good with smallmouth? I don't know. He fished last year. I don't remember how he did. But he doesn't stand out to me as a stalwart smallmouth fisherman.
not in the bucket too, and that's the thing. That's no disrespect to any specific angler, but oftentimes whether they're a good pick or not is depending on who else is in the bucket with them. And when you have the Johnston brothers in that bucket, it's hard to pick against them. So there's going to be a lot of low percentage guys that have a shot to shine, and someone's going to go out on a limb because they're their favorite angler and they're going to pick them and they're going to reward them greatly. But yeah, to bank on it, gun to your head, it's hard to pick somebody that you're unsure about, especially when it's going to be 85 to 100 pounds at the St. Lawrence.
Just here's what, ask yourself, even though this is a free game, if you had to put $50 on it, who would you pick?
Yeah.
So for me, like you said, you're going Cliff Perch. I think that's a good pick. I think I might even mentioned him in my my article. I think, Seth, a solid pick here. Zaldain's a solid pick here. I just think the value at being just like a third to half their percentage, it's hard to pass up Polnick. He's had several top tens in here when he's fished the Elite Series. Most of them have come where we're moving the tournament to, either at the mouth of the lake or in the lake. So I think this at 13%, even at a marginally high percentage, that's just too good for me to pass up. So
that's a good one. I'm surprised he's only at 13%.
He probably will cry him a little bit, but I still think, with Seth and Chris being the more current Elite Series stars and Polnick taking a season or two off, I think people have forgotten what a talented angler and what a good smallmouth angler is, and I think we'll be reminded very quickly this week. So
maybe even the first couple hours of day one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a live camera on Polnick on day one.
Well, I know who we're live with, and I'm not going to give up the goods right now.
But even if you didn't know, I bet you wouldn't be shocked. So.
Well, yeah, no. If we don't see something of him, I know Kyle, his cameraman, is going to be around as well, documenting it. That'll be worthwhile watching on his BMP video series on YouTube. Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, if you want to see what the St. Lawrence looks like before live, you can go back and rewatch Bassmaster from the last couple seasons, but you could also go back a couple years and watch some of
Brandon Polnick's series and see some of that stuff. And there's a lot of good content out there.
Yeah, there was one time I think he had like 12 pounds or something on day one of maybe it was the year Van Dam won, maybe 2017 or 2016. I think it was 2017. When Van Dam won, he had like 11 or 12 pounds on day one. Polnick did. And then he's like, I tried to fish around and do stuff, but heck with it. I'm going straight to the mouth of the lake as far as I can go to the off limits. I'm going to go touch that off limits barrier, and I'm going to fish down there. Running like 25, 26, 24, and ended up like finishing third after having like 11 pounds on day one. So Polnick has won. He's also played catch up very well and had a shot to win in another one for sure.
Yeah. And like there is a chance that there's always the conversation, will we hit 100 pounds? Could it happen? And it could happen. It's a low percentage, but it could happen for sure.
If it's going to happen, we may see it this year with the St. Clair and the St. Lawrence events. Those two events, last year, Fighter had 77 pounds and change with 3 days. If he would have gone out on day 4, I'd have bet $150 that he was going to catch 22 pounds and make 100. But St. Lawrence is always a place. It's really a race. Who's going to be the first smallmouth, only smallmouth 20 fish, 100-pound event? Man, I didn't pick it with my tiebreaker weight. I picked just short of it, but I'm not superstitious, but I picked just short of it because it hasn't happened yet, and I'd rather be wrong by going low than picking 102 pounds and it not making it. So I got it close, but I'd love to see that day. It'd be a really special time for the sport to have a 20 fish, 100 pounds for smallmouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's just crazy that you think like just sidetrack, but Seth has fished, he's won 2 AOI tournaments. In both of those tournaments, if they've been 4-day, he would have probably crushed 100 pounds in both of them. Like he would have been like 108 or 106 or like something stupid. Like
I think he had 75 and change or 76 at Mille Lacs, and then he had 77 change at St. Clair. Those two different 3-day events. We just got to.
Both of those he was kind of coasting in, like he was like he knew he was like
inviting people to come fish with him. Yeah. Sleeping in Mille Lacs, that was fun.
So bucket B. This is where I kind of went a little down lower percentage, kind of like you did. I went with Bill Lowen because like I felt like there was a lot of like very solid guys, but nobody really jumped out. I mean, there wasn't a Polnick, a Fighter, a Johnston, there's some guys that are very talented in here, but there wasn't like a bunch of smallmouth gurus in B. And I went back and looked, and Bill Lowen has been very solid on the St. Lawrence River. And I don't think he's ever not caught a 10,000 or better check on the St. Lawrence when I went back and looked. So that's why I went with him. And that's what, because I took a lot of chalk in the lower buckets and I wanted to go a little bit off the radar, and I felt really good about that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on bucket B?
Lowen's a good one. He'll be properly rated after this live stream. People will pick him because he's low, and then he'll be back up to the other picks percentage wise. But no, I picked Hank Cherry, which is one of those risky ones. He's got that elbow deal. You never know. He could go on a jerk bait and done day one. You just don't know. But he's been so close to having just fantastic events there, but losing fish on a jerk bait or losing them on a spinning rod, or there was a year where if you hook the fish outside the mouth, that salmon rule, that really screwed him up and he had to throw it back. So I like Hank Cherry for bucket B. I think he gets a little bit of revenge on it this year. I think that a lot of areas that he likes to fish had a lot more anglers near them, and this year with change and takeoff, he might not have as much company, and he might be able to lose fish and still have plenty of fish at his disposal to weigh in 20 pounds.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Frazier definitely. But I think we did talk about he fished Canadian waters last year, right? So he's got to refine some stuff, and I know he kind of banked on that area for a couple of years. But obviously he's talented. We didn't really talk about Gussie, but I do think he's a solid option, especially if you're looking for that lower percentage. And C is really murderer's row of like smallmouth guys for the St. Lawrence, and it's tough to single anybody out in that.
That's gonna be the bucket that you separate yourself because, like I said, there's like 10 or 11 guys that you can pick. There, you can have a lot of different variety in there. I guarantee you, after we have a couple days of St. Lawrence under our belts, I can look at the fantasy fishing leaderboard, and there'll be a lot of similar picks. And bucket C will probably vary. For 5 of the top 10, they'll have a different guy there.
Yeah. So Lunker says he's got Caleb Supperall, which is a pretty low percentage pick. It'd be interesting to see, is a guy like Caleb gonna go make the best of the largemouth, because that's clearly where his comfort zone is, or is he gonna, fish for shallow smallies? Or like when he made the Elite Series, he did it on Hartwell, fishing for spots, which is not all that different than fishing for smallies. So any of these guys can do it. So it's definitely could be a good pick.
Yeah, Summerall's an interesting one. He definitely learned more about smallmouth last year in our swing, and I think it's really a wild card. It's hard to bank off the last 4 years of fantasy fishing at the St. Lawrence because the lake hasn't been in play. So some of these guys who caught them really good, the guys who caught them really good might have done it in the river, and they might not even touch the river this year, other than for takeoff and the lake. So that's another twist in this.
Yeah, I think this really sets up.
I love that.
For the have the history and have seen a lot of the river over the years. So I like looking at the guys for this year that had been there 4, 5, 6, 8 times. I think that's going to serve them well with the new playing field this year. So why don't you explain why you love the Arizona Cardinals? It seems like a good time.
So I like the Arizona Cardinals because back in 2006 or something like that, they got Kurt Warner, and I loved his story. They also got Edgerrin James, and they paired those two up with Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Bolden. They had some good guys on defense like Darnell Doggett, Calais Campbell. They had Adrian Wilson, Carlos Dansby. They had Antrell Roll, Patrick Peterson. Some of those guys have been with the team for a while now, and I liked them a lot. And the division, I'm from North Carolina, and I'm not a Panthers fan at all. So I just like that team. They're an underdog. No one really liked that they disrespected the division. That was when 8-8 and 9-7 were good records. And then they made the Super Bowl. They almost beat the Steelers with Santonio Holmes' extra long toe right there touching in, and that 100-yard pick six interception by James Harrison. Brutal way to lose the Super Bowl, but I love them since then, and then they got better. The division got better, and it takes 13-3 to win the division now every single year almost, and they've won it a couple times. They always have the Seahawks number. They compete with the Niners even when they're good and the Cardinals are bad. And then this year, they surprised me a little bit. Kyler Murray was better than I thought. I actually was not happy with the pick, and it actually was a good pick for based on who I wanted them to pick. And Chandler Jones is a beast. So I try to go to a Cardinals game every year, but I'm excited their rebuild might be a lot quicker than everybody thought. But they should compete this year. They should have a shot to maybe get a wild card. But we could have 3 teams from the NFC West make it.
Sure. Cool. All right. So Lunker says he's got Lester for A. So do I. He's a decent, solid percentage at 9. He's gonna be right around 9-10%. I looked hard at. I kind of thought about picking Canterbury. He did really well last year. He's leading the AOI. Obviously, he's probably going to have to find some new water again, but, obviously he can. He did it last year. There's no reason he can't find new water again this year. I think we talked about Keith Combs being really good on smallies in this venue. Anybody, who are you picking, and who do you want to highlight in bucket A?
Well, I wanted to real quick, and not to derail the show. Shadow Basson commented, "Fighter went largemouth fishing towards Messina one year. I was shocked. He had the worst year, or the worst day of smallmouth fishing of his life. He foul hooked some on the bed after he thought, and he just went and caught a limit real quick, but then he pulled them out with smallmouth. So he didn't purposely go largemouth fishing. He couldn't do anything right with smallmouth, losing them. They follow him to the boat, foul hooking them, breaking them off. So he had to just survive. But bucket A, I've got Chad Pipkin. He's a St. Clair, Lake Erie type guy, and so I feel with Ontario setting up as a comparable fishery, I think he's going to be one that's going to know in that wide open range where to go, where to look, He's great with his electronics. And I think that he's going to have a really, really good shot to shine in bucket A. And at 4.5%, I'll take that all day to the bank and back. Canterbury, 19%. It's hard to say it's risky because he's on such a hot streak until he doesn't catch him. You can't predict when he's not going to catch him. It's basically when he doesn't catch him, you're like, oh, he didn't catch him this week. He's been catching him that good. But last year was really his first big-time year on the St. Lawrence and fishing it, and not going to say it was luck or anything like that, but, like, it worked out well for him. He adapted very well. So it's almost like what he learned last year is good, but it's going to be different this year. So he's going to have to get used to that. I think that Pipkins is excited. He's got a positive mental attitude going towards this. He'll be a good one. Jamie Hartman's going to be one to watch too, 38% though. That's a tough percentage to deal with. I like Lester at 9. And then you got some guys, a Drew Cook, who is underrated at being an offshore fisherman. He can catch him out there as well. Matt Airy, if Canterbury's at 19%, why is Matt Airy at 2%? They work together so well. He actually had a tip last year that allowed Canterbury to catch a few extra fish. Before Airy got eliminated, he helped out Canterbury, his roommate, before he got eliminated, and Canterbury used some of that on the final day. So they worked well together. So if you're going to put Canterbury at 19%, you might as well put Matt Airy at 19%. You know, he should be up there just as high as Canterbury is.
Yeah, I guess I kind of like your logic on Pipkins. I didn't think about it because I just kind of looked at this like Pipkins has done okay, but he's definitely stubbed his toe on the St. Lawrence. But I didn't think like giving him Ontario probably definitely rises his stock quite a bit. And I didn't really think about that. So that's an interesting angle for sure. So
that's fine. I don't want anybody else to think about that. Y'all don't pick Pipkins. He's not going to do well, I promise.
Yeah. But yeah, there's, I mean, a lot of talented anglers, just not a lot of like, no, I mean, Hartman, you know, obviously from that area, he's done okay. I think he was like 25th or 21st or something last year. So, I mean, he's probably a safe pick. It kind of depends on what you do with the rest of your buckets. I mean, Cruz is definitely capable of catching them. Keith Combs had a few top 10s on St. Lawrence. So there's a lot of good options here for sure. So,
yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see how a Buddy Gross does in his first trip there. So it'd be interesting to see how Brandon Cobb does. Brandon Cobb went up to the St. Lawrence last year and said he did some dumb stuff. And I said, what do you mean?
Right.
And he said, I already won 2 Elite Series events. So I was just trying to win all of them. And I just crash and burn and not do well. So it depends on where you're doing in the points race, how conservative or how willing you are to risk it. This year, with the St. Lawrence not being near the end of the year, being the third event, people are going to fish it for points instead of for winning, you know, and it's going to – they're going to want to play conservative and not trying to make up points at the end of the year. They're just trying to hold steady. And I think that's going to be a factor in it. Shanley Hewitt, 4.4%, not even 1%. He had a shot to win that event last year too. After 3 days, I think he finished like 12th. So he barely missed the cut. He was right there with Chris Johnston sharing water. And Chris Johnston was the leader. He was in the top 5. So it depends on how shallow, really.
Watching with you, I feel like I remember if he was throwing a jerkbait or he was having like a bunch of follows and they weren't eating it. I don't remember what it was, but there was something on live where he was like not converting, but he was seeing them for sure.
Good old Marabou.
Yeah. Solid rock. He's got Lester, Mueller, Micah, Frazier, Demarion, and Johnson. I think that's decent. I will caution you, Paul Mueller seems like he should do well, but his track record hasn't been good on the St. Lawrence. But maybe this venue change will serve him well. I mean, he's definitely has all the skills and the tools and the knowledge to do well. He just hasn't necessarily put it together in those tournaments. Lester, small guy from Tennessee. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, I cut you off. My bad. With Mueller, I think he's more of an open water smallmouth guy rather than a river smallmouth guy. Right. Remember, the St. Lawrence River, it is like a normal kind of river. You gotta know how current sets up fish, to know how to drift it, to know how to fight it, whatever. But I always see Mueller as more of like a drop down smallmouth, and you'd be amazed. You get maybe 5 to 10 miles away from the mouth of St. Lawrence out on Ontario, and the current is not nearly as strong. But because that giant lake funnels down to the St. Lawrence, the current is so swift. It's for sure 100% a river. When you get out a little bit, it's more like a lake. So he can drop shot vertically. He can do some of those rock pile things where it's not just drifting aimlessly. You know how many guys probably drifted over $100,000 and they were 15 feet to the right or to the left, and they didn't catch the 5-pounders. They caught 3.5s. out there on the rock piles, it's much easier to tell what size they are. And when you catch one, you spot lock and you just keep dropping down.
Yeah, I mean, Lester definitely understands Tennessee smallmouth. They're not exactly the same. I wouldn't say a smallmouth is a smallmouth in this case. Yeah, so, yeah, thanks, guys. Lester, Summerall, Gussie, Livesay, Weidler definitely could work. There's some high risk, high reward guys there.
I like two. Yeah, I like the Lester and Gussie pick. The other ones are always just, you never know. But I think that Livesay is gonna try to just have a solid event because he's not happy being in bucket D down in the points race. He just wanted to have a solid event and keep building, knowing that he can bank on Fork being the last event. He can nail it out of the park and solidify a classic berth right there. He's just wanting to not lose as many points as possible in these next couple of events, probably.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a little bit. What are maybe some of your thoughts on Champlain and St. Clair coming up?
Man, I don't want to burn an Austin Felix pick here at the St. Lawrence because I'm going to use that at Champlain probably. So I think Champlain's going to be interesting because Canada's not in play, never has been in play in opens or elites. There's part of Missisquoi Bay on the Vermont side that at the northernmost point is Canada, and then also on the main drag of Champlain is Canada. So I don't know about the guys largemouth, smallmouth. Missisquoi is great for largemouth. So is Ticonderoga. I don't feel like many people have to run to Ticonderoga to catch largemouth because Missisquoi is so much closer. So largemouth will factor at Champlain. I feel like it could be a 15 smallmouth, 5 largemouth type of tournament for 20 fish, something like that. Foil and stuff like Fighter almost winning on that. We saw Topwater with Kelly J and Jacob Wheeler and whatnot. Then we had Aaron Martins obviously win it coming way back from 19th because it was a shortened event the last time we were at Champlain. But Brian Schmidt, Austin Felix, those are two of my favorite picks, and they're in the same bucket for the St. Lawrence. So I need one of them to switch it up and not be in the same bucket next time so I can pick both of them. But Champlain's an interesting one just because there is a lot of factors. The inland seas right there. There's a bunch of community holes near takeoff that some guys might really lean on, and they might disappear as day 3 and day 4 come down to it. So I think that you'll see some risks being taken as we head to the weekend on Champlain for sure.
And I think Champlain is going to be even more interesting because with a little bit smaller field, like even last time the Elite Series was there, it was probably closer to 100 anglers, and now we're right around 80, low 80s, right? So I think that's going to even just I think that gives those inland sea and community holes that are a little closer to takeoff a little more merit because a little less likely that they're going to get beat up as much. Lunkers asked, what is Champlain like? It has a little bit of everything. It's got deep, it's got shallow, it's got smallies, it's got everything. And he asked, Summerall for Champlain. I actually do like Summerall for Champlain a lot more than I like him for the St. Lawrence. So if you really are a Caleb Summerall fan, think about holding for this next event and finding somebody else. That's probably not a bad strategy because I definitely think he will find all the flipping and frogging water he will want at Champlain. And that has the merit. You absolutely have a chance to win doing that at Champlain where you're probably just trying for points and a check at St. Lawrence doing that. So
I don't think I'm wrong in thinking this. Last year, FLW had a pro event there, and I think that largemouth led it day 1, day 2, day 3, and then something happened. A local was fishing on largemouth water down there before they made that long run to tie, and then somebody came back and won it and was focused.
Largemouth. It was Casey Scanlon that won.
Yes,
it was one out of Ticonderoga, but the guy that was leading it for the first 3 days was fishing some pipes and some current stuff, and then there was a local tournament and they got beat to it, and that kind of opened the door. But most of the top 10 or a lot of the top 10 came out of fish and tie for largemouth, but there was a really strong smallmouth spawning bite still, people fishing deep with floggers and stuff like that. And I don't remember exactly what time of year it was, and I don't know if I think
for sure
it's to see some spawning smallmouth, maybe? I'm not quite sure. I don't remember exactly. I feel like they're more like late June when they were there, weren't they?
Yeah, I feel like it was right before the 4th of July. And so I think I think that it will be a lot more consistent with smallmouth than like I think largemouth were big bags and consistent that tournament earlier in the year. But I think now late July, I think smallmouth will be more consistent and they would have had a chance coming off bed probably just 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think that they were on bed around 2 or 3 weeks ago. So obviously there may be some, but I think that there'll be early post spawn, maybe some of that shallower, those transitions, those breaks. They might be there instead of out deep. But there's that first wave that always spawns early that probably is way out deep now. So it'll be a good mixture. And you can catch largemouth on those riprap bridges and stuff up in smallmouth country. Carl Jacobson's caught plenty on big swim baits up there on the rocks and stuff. So it's an opportunity to fish close for largemouth too.
Yeah, it can be one with either. I think it's going to be a mixed bag or largemouth that wins it.
I like Solid Rock Outdoors right there. I like that. That's if he can
survive. Whether he goes to Mexico or it goes down to Thai, he's going to probably find a frog bite. So
yeah, I think Welcher. I'm surprised he doesn't have the AOI lead after Eufaula, but Canterbury caught him just as good, if not better, the first 2 events than he did. That's why he's leading. But if Welcher does okay being top 20, 25 at St. Lawrence,
or even just gets a big check, finish top 35. I think
he'll have a shot to be top 5 and AOI leader possibly after Champlain. I think that he could do really well there. But then again, you look at it and you're like, Scott Canterbury probably has a really great track record at Champlain too, because he's just that good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Brock, he'd like to think locals would stop their tournaments for a week when the pros come, and that's rarely the case, to be honest. Isn't that your experience? It happens every once in a while they reschedule it, but not very often.
Yeah, and that's the one unique thing that makes bass fishing the unique sport that it is that's like if me and you just got our shoes on and we got a basketball and we started shooting hoops while LeBron's trying to go on a fast break, we'd probably mess up their game a lot. And fishing's different. It's a big lake, but people fishing locally in a tournament or for fun, hey, it's part of the game for sure. And it's not easy at all. I think last time I was at Champlain was for an open, and I rolled up to cover Jesse Tacarante on the final day. He was in the top 5. And there was somebody live baiting his spot. Like they were fishing with like perch and they were catching just giant smallmouth and like right on his spot. They didn't know, judging by who they were and what boat they were in, they didn't even know there was a tournament going on. And it's Jesse's like, dang, dude, they've like let go like 25 pounds. And so that's the way it is. But I think anglers in the South are much more accustomed to it. They're used to preparing, knowing people are going to be fishing out on the weekends.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about St. Clair. So I think the Canadian thing is a bigger deal there. I mean, there's plenty of fish all over St. Clair, but I think that kind of cuts the lake in half almost, doesn't it?
Oh, straight down the middle, if that's the case. But I don't know if the Canada border is just whatever the border rules are. I don't know if they're just associated with where New York and Canada touch, or if it's all of the Canada water and it's Rainy Lake, even in Minnesota, in Canada, that region, if that's cut off too, or if it's St. Clair. But I feel like St. Clair, give it another month, late August, it's going to be, you don't know what the world's going to look like. I mentioned it before we started. A day is like a month, a day is like a week is like a month is like a year when it comes to COVID. So what happens at the end of August, I have no idea, but St. Clair should be fine. I don't know if we would change our off limits areas if Canada was, we might let them go to Huron or Erie. And it's worth noting at the St. Lawrence, Canada's off limits for fishing, but you can navigate through Canada to get to fishable water in New York. And people might be like, well, why would you want to go to Canada if you're fishing in New York? There's so many islands and twists and turns and really shallow areas that you can navigate through. Like the dam is partially in Canada as well. You can navigate through Canada to get to fishable water in New York. Different case with St. Clair because we're taking off directly on the Detroit side, and it's straight down the middle. You don't even have to get close to that side to navigate St. Clair. But I don't think that that'll be an issue. But I also didn't think that we'd cancel or postpone as many events as we have. So
Yeah. So I was listening to another podcast, and it sounds like the other series events and that kind of stuff, they are U.S. only on St. Clair and Detroit River and all that stuff. So I think that is still happening over there. And I believe that Canada just extended that another 30 days on their border cutoff. So the only thing would be is if they change their policy on what is allowed, like, is it just crossing? Is it fishing? And so I guess that'll be the bigger thing to monitor. And if that opens up, but there's still a ton of water. Like I said, you guys might allow them
over. I think that Canada order, if it does go 30 days from now, it would be right before our practice would start. So I think that if they just say, oh, that month was good and it's just lifted there, it would be business as usual. But we would want to know
30 days from today, or if it's 30 days from, and it could be like from a date in the future too. I don't know. So, but it'll still be a good event, and you're still going to smash them. And that is going to be a pure smallmouth event for the most part. Like that's even probably more than St. Lawrence, a pure smallmouth event. So.
Yeah, and I think that Fighter Spot was in New York or was in Michigan, so it was in the U.S. There are some places in the Detroit River that would be fished that aren't normally fished. We've seen them occasionally year to year that get utilized, even up into the St. Clair River up towards Huron. We've seen some drifts up there that really pay off, and so it'll be interesting. But yeah, that with wherever it divides the river or those lakes, the Canada border, that's definitely going to be a place to watch, because I'd hate to see it, but Apollonik DQ at Mississippi River with the whole Wisconsin-Minnesota culling deal, we could see a guy at any one of these events that is fishing just a little too close to the border, and the wind blows and he lands a fish on the wrong side of the border, and he's, he could be done for, or that specific fish, or if he didn't know he messed up, his whole bag for that day could be DQ'd.
So cool. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So that's kind of the northern swing. And then we'll finish up at Santee Cooper, Lake Fork, and Chickamauga, and possibly one other event to be determined.
Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be. What would we have? We'd have 3, and then 3. I think we'd have 3 northern events left with New York, and St. Clair, and could possibly have 4 southern. But we have 3 for sure. 3 southern events at the end of the year. So it'll be an interesting race for sure for that AOI trophy for classic spots and whatnot. And we'll explain it a whole lot more if with the testing that comes out and things at the New York event this week, what implications it might have. But really, if Ronnie had his pick, we'd have 86 negative tests, and it's business as usual with no problems.
That'd be awesome. So do you get one kind of thing? Do you guys do anything? Are you planning anything, or do you do anything different with the ESPN live versus just the straight Bassmaster.com live? Is there any extra stuff that goes into it? What else do you put more into it, less into it? Like what does that look like, and what does that mean for you guys from a production standpoint?
I think it's a trick question, not from you, but because of how we operate at JM. Super proud of all the people I work with. They're never satisfied. They're never satisfied. We're the first professional fishing league to do live, and then we've just been changing with it, growing with it, doing these different things. And even if no other leagues existed and no one else was doing live, we would still be making these decisions to change and adapt and to improve the show, because that's what JM does. That's what Jerry McInnes is all about. That's what Mike McInnes, his son's, all about. Everyone there is motivated to put on the best show possible, no matter what it takes. So to see us do these different changes and advancements, it brings a tear to my eye, because I know Jerry's proud, looking down on us, that these things have been going to ESPN2 Live, whether it's a freak year or not. Those opportunities are there. But I don't think that we do anything out of the norm that we wouldn't already do, because we're already getting ahead of the event. What do we want to do? What do we want to cover? Do we have to let's pre-plan this? Let's package this up. Hey, Ronnie, do you think you're going to do 5 monitor hits or what? And I'm like, hey, I can do as minimum of 3, and I can do a maximum of whatever we need to talk about. But likely, I'd love to take less monitor hits, even though I love to talk on camera, because that means they're catching the water so well that we don't want to pull back to studio. So I think that that's one thing that I would say is no matter who's catching them, how much they're catching them, what the state of the world is, what the state of other fishing leagues are, Jay and Associates, who does all the TV stuff for Bassmaster, that whole portion of the crew never settles, and they're always trying to learn how to push themselves, which is why I love. We don't have teleprompters. We're not told to say anything. We just come up with it on our own, and they support us, and they grow and learn. And that's why I love being the young guy in the crew, but the one who knows a lot of sometimes insignificant facts, but sometimes they're really fun stats and stuff that we can make into a different segments. And I think that we really saw the power of it, that the sport needs if we can continue this ESPN2 live stuff.
Nice. Yeah, hopefully this is like a big boost, a little big shot in the arm for the whole industry. So, and if you had teleprompters on, I wouldn't read them anyways, so it doesn't really matter.
I can't read that well to do that. I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to kind of wrap it up. We went about 90 minutes. That feels pretty good. I actually got the look from the wife about 10 minutes ago.
I got the text from the wife asking when I was done as well. So not that she was rushing.
Never stops, never works. But I appreciate it, Ronnie. This has been awesome. Maybe we'll get the Southern Swing, do another preview. We'll see who else we can get to talk about. And I guess I did want to point out that make sure you guys, like this week, you head over to Bassmaster.com, and they should have a bunch of Pundit articles coming up. Not that any of the other ones are any good besides mine, but go here and you're going to see, Coy's and Pete Robbins, and I'm guessing we're not going to see one from Thomas Allen this week because he's kind of lazy. And I don't remember. There's one more. Blanking. But yeah,
you got him. I think there's 3 or 4.
There's one more. I'm just not. Anyways, you'll see it when it gets up there. Make sure you guys go check those out as they're coming out this week. If you didn't see the whole thing, make sure you catch the replay. There's also the audio version. This will be on a podcast. And I should say that actually, are you going to be doing a podcast episode soon, Ronnie?
Man, if the world wasn't so uncertain, I would have been doing a whole lot more of my own podcasts, which I do it old school. If you want to get into a podcast, I do it simply by doing my voice memos. You have voice memos on your phone. I just pull up a voice memo and I just talk into it while I'm driving down the road, and boom, podcast is done. A lot of people put in a lot of hard work into those, but yeah, I'll probably do a podcast on it. I don't want it to strictly be fantasy fishing, but I've been so lazy and so busy with other things, I haven't done them. So no excuse, shame on me, but I will. I'll be back at it probably this weekend as we know more. Probably, I would say Sunday night or Monday. Probably Monday. Yeah.
So there'll be a link down in the description on the replay. It's already in there, so once it goes live, you'll see that. It's called Cast to Podcast with Ronnie Moore or something like that, right? Did you get that right?
Yeah, I can find a name for it. I didn't even know what to call it, and I was like, "I'll do a podcast. It'll be under my name, and then I'll figure it out." And then they were like, "Last step, name your podcast." And I was like, "Well, shoot, I got to come up with a name." So I just did something about fishing, Cast to Podcast. So it's been good though. It's fun. I like watching your stuff. I like watching some of my other buddies who have done like a serious angler with Bailey. He's been doing Skype type lives that go on YouTube as well as podcasts. So some good people doing it on their own free time that it'll eventually turn into something that they can make money on. And I'm happy to see those people giving that effort. That's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't already, you can follow Ronnie at Ronnie Moore Bass on Instagram. I think I've got his Facebook and his Instagram linked down below. And always just go on to Bassmaster.com or watch ESPN2 next week or next weekend, and you'll get all the Ronnie Moore you need in your life. So
yeah, Twitter's a great way to interact during live as well because it's so many tweets, some up-to-date stuff. You can look at Bass Track on Twitter as well. So Ronnie Moore Bass on Twitter as well, and you can bother me, send in your fan questions, send in your food photos. We love talking about the food photos on Bassmaster Live. Zona does especially.
Or if you get a cool setup of you watching live, that'll usually get you on there. Like if you got something unique.
Yeah.
Like if you take your entire works conference room and put your feet up on the table and take a picture, that'll usually get you on Bassmaster Live for sure. So
we've seen some teachers that have a recess time and they have it on their projector in their room, and that's some super cool stuff. So we've got people plowing their farm fields and they've got a GPS so they can stay on the right path, and then they have the Bass Live on their phone, and police officers that are on break and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice, good stuff. All right. Well, as always, thanks everybody for tuning in. Here to help you catch more bass and suck less at fantasy fishing. So until next time, we'll see you guys.
Peace.